welcome back to Brashonomics. You ever think about things when you're in the shower? A lot of people tend to do the best thinking while they're actually in the shower. We were just discussing that while we were at break. And, I think that's a lot of times because there's not a lot to do. So you just get into this kind of hyper-focused mode. You just are sitting there. There's nothing distracting you. And it really makes it easy to maybe just focus on one thing. I don't know. I'm no shower thinking expert, but that's what we're talking about. So I thought I'd clue everybody in. Ramona Jones is joining us with a career in real estate that spans more than 15 years. Ramona is among the top 2% of realtors at Keller Williams nationwide. Ramona, how are you?
I am great. How about you?
I'm excellent. A lot of people are talking real estate these days, as are we.
Yeah.
And you must be busy. It must just be chaos out there.
It is utter chaos. I thought December was busy, but January hit. Buyers came out of the woodwork. Inventory is low. It's a different market. Different from what I've ever seen.
How does somebody, at the top of the hour, I was just discussing how a lot of people think they can go become a real estate expert because they maybe go on Zillow or they read a blog or they, get some sort of magazine. But when you're in a market like this, you really do need somebody who does this every single day, don't you?
You do, absolutely, because things you read on Zillow, for instance, or even a magazine, our market is changing so quickly. Things change from week to week. We are trending up now, which we haven't done in a long time. And Zillow's behind. Zillow's based on tax records. We know our tax assessor isn't always, 100% on top of everything that happens. So it is important.
The only time people want their house to be less.
Less, yes, yes. So I think it's great that consumers have access to all of this information, but they should always bounce it off a professional who's got their finger on the pulse of the market.
That's true. So here's an item. I know a lot of people, as you said, are coming out of the woodworks to buy houses. There's not a lot of inventory, and there's a lot of agents and a lot of people who are forced to go with this strategy of the backup offer. Is that worth it?
Absolutely. I just made an offer over the weekend on a house that at last count had 18 offers. It's probably up to around 30 today. Sellers need to look at more than just the price they get on this offer, because if it's bid up too high and it doesn't appraise, it'll never close. There are a lot of things that can go sideways, the inspection, financing, just to name a couple. And if you put a backup offer in, the seller actually agrees to the terms of your offer, and you are automatically in second position. So if anything happens to that first buyer, you're elevated to number one. And if you're one of 18, chances are you may not get the house. But if you're number two and it goes sideways, you're automatically in there versus the house goes back on the market and there's another bidding war to get it.
Why would somebody not get it if they're number one? Is it just because oftentimes their offer is too aggressive and it just doesn't quite hold the water that it's
people get caught up in the emotional aspect of winning the house. Sometimes there's buyer's remorse. Sometimes they feel maybe they paid too much for it. I have buyers use the inspection contingency to walk, not because of anything that happened with the inspection, just because when you're in that environment, you see a house, you basically have to decide and write an offer just about the moment you see it to be a player in the game. And that's not comfortable for a lot of people, but they get caught up in that. So a lot of times it's just people deciding, oh, maybe this isn't the house for me after all. A lot of houses, bank owns or short sales, can have some inspection issues. Not everyone's prepared to deal with those things because typically a seller or a bank won't give a credit or resolve those issues.
So it sounds to me that like what you're saying is a lot of people get into this emotional part of winning the house and then realize maybe that the price isn't necessarily worth winning, and now they have this ability to walk away.
Yes. Yeah, that happens at times.
And sellers must have to be very weary of that.
They do. And, it's difficult in this market as an agent pricing a house. You want to price it aggressively to get those offers. But you don't want to it's great to have a bidding war, but when you've got 18, I'd hate to have 18 or 25 or 30 offers to look at because there's so much to consider. And you want to make sure that this house is in a range that will appraise. You want to make sure the buyer is emotionally committed to buying the house and not just caught up in the excitement of it. So there's a lot to consider.
So let's take a step back. What exactly is a backup offer and what makes it so that it can be worth it?
So a backup offer is just like any other offer in terms of the forms, the purchase and sale agreement that's signed by the seller. There is an additional form that states if first accepted offer, if that buyer falls out for any reason, the new offer will automatically slide into first position. So that buyer is then the buyer that's contractually bound to the house. So the house doesn't even come back on the market.
And so somebody puts this in literally, as a purpose of only if the first person doesn't get it? Or would they put them both in at the same time and then accept a second position?
Well, what happens is, a seller may have two offers they like. They go with one and they offer the second position to somebody else.
So it's offered by the seller that you can be our backup, but we're going to accept this one.
Right. Or it could be offered by the buyer. As a buyer's agent, I may ask the seller or the seller's agent, will you accept a backup offer? And typically they will. There's no harm in doing that.
Sure. Well, and I think there's probably an advantage because that means that house doesn't have to go back on the market should the first one fall through.
Correct. Yeah. Because there's nothing worse for a seller than to be pending. Some time passes and it comes back on the market and then people wonder, it was pending inspection and now it's active again. Is something wrong with it? What happened? It does lose its luster after it's been through that process.
So then what are some of the strategies for winning? I guess if you're in a bidding war and you're like, gosh, well, that first, number one offer that seller decided to accept is, we don't think it's worth that much. It's out of our price range. We're not approved for that for whatever reason. What are strategies for kind of winning in that and getting in that second position?
Well, the strategy is always to be in first position. And what you want to do your homework before you even look at the house. Look at comps so and have your agent look at the trend too. So if comps, houses sold 3 months ago for $200,000. And there's been some appreciation, apply that number to, however many months have passed so that you really know the range that you're in. Because if you make an aggressive offer and it's higher than what it may appraise for, it may not get picked as number one or even number two. Financing is really important. So not only to be pre-approved, but also the more money you put down, the stronger you're going to be in the seller's eyes. FHA is a great product, but there are a lot of people that qualify for conventional financing. With 20% down, there's no MI. And I've even heard of some conventional programs now that offer, 10% down and maybe some type of a second. So there's no MI period. Those are starting to come back. So have your realtor and your mortgage broker look into other options. Be ready to do an inspection within a day or two. So have your inspector available so that if you do get it, you can remove that contingency right away.
Or quickly back out.
As
you said.
Yes.
Ramona Jones is here with us with the Jones Group at Keller Williams. Ramona, when people are putting in this offer and these strategies, it seems like, as you said, you go in, you have to like the house instantly, then you have to make an offer. Now you're saying have your inspector on call for 1 or 2 days later. This can be very fast for people. Do you see more buyer's remorse in the market today for people who actually close on a house because they get caught up in the hubbub of the purchase?
I haven't seen it from people who have closed on a house, but I do see it from people who make offers and realize, it may not be all it's cracked up to be. And we usually have some contingencies where they can get out. If an agent strategically writes an offer, there are a couple of loopholes that we've got to get people out. I don't like to do business that way. I like to be really upfront. But the inspection contingency is one. Technically, you don't even have to do an inspection. You can just disapprove based on that contingency and be able to walk. So I do see that happening at times. The other thing that's changed a little bit is with short sales. And if you want to get into that next, I can.
Certainly.
So short sales, typically it used to be you make an offer on a short sale and nothing happens until after we get lien holder approval. Well, nowadays banks are starting to pre-approve the price up front, which is great. But I always tell my buyers, if you really want to get this one, because those are competitive too, agree to do your inspection during that time frame of when you're waiting for the bank. Deposit your earnest money now. It's still protected, but deposit it now to show the seller that you're really serious about this house.
And these are these are almost like facade type of commitments. Hey, we'll do the inspection that we were going to do anyways, and I'll put money up that's completely protected.
Totally. So, but we're giving the seller a comfort level because otherwise the buyer isn't bound to the contract.
But why? I guess my question is, why would a seller be more comfortable if really it just feels very almost like okay, the money's there, but you can't have, I mean, it seems like almost, like I said, this facade of commitment.
Well, it is a commitment, even though we know it's a facade.
Okay.
It's a commitment. People, writing a check and having escrow hold a check, it's still a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
It is an investment. Even if they get it back eventually, they don't have the use of that money.
Mm-hmm.
And a serious buyer will do that. A buyer who's just kind of fishing around a little bit may not do that. Paying for an inspection is an investment that you're not going to get back if you don't get the house.
Mm-hmm.
So there is an additional level of commitment to doing it that way. And for the buyer, there is comfort in knowing I've done the inspection. I know what this house has going on, because there's nothing worse than waiting 2 months for the short sale to be approved. You're going to spend the money on the inspection
Find out
anyway.
you have cracked foundations and a house that's falling down.
Right. You can't afford to fix it, and the sellers can't afford to fix it.
Yeah. Ramona, we just have a couple minutes left. But so when people are going in and they're looking to purchase, a short sale, a bank-owned property, no matter what, there is a lot more competition. Do you continue to see that in the near future?
I do. I do expect inventory to increase as we get further into spring, but I also expect buyers to continue to come out. Interest rates are low, although they've ticked up a little bit.
Which scares the heck out of everybody.
Which is why they're all coming out in droves.
Right. Oh my gosh, we're at 3.5 now, or whatever it is last week, and I mean they tick up these little bits.
Yeah, because 3.5 is a god awful interest rate.
Scary. It's so scary. I mean, literally, with rates in that range, it's. And you can find them on Bankrate. You can find these rates anywhere.
Right.
And it's amazing to see the range of interest rates, but they tick up a little bit, and it freaks people out.
It does. And I continue to expect buyers to come out. I continue to expect to see inventory levels lower than the level of buyers. REOs, when you look at the number of bank owns, they're down compared to what they were even last quarter. And I think that's in part because of the short sales that are being approved. Banks are now reaching out to homeowners before realtors even know that people are in trouble, suggesting short sales. So things have changed a lot.
Yeah. Well, Ramona, we do have to go to break. Stick around. We'd love to get some more of your opinions. And thanks for not multitasking while we were chatting.
You are welcome.
We'll be right back after this break. We are going to talk a little bit. It is about multitasking and maybe why you are unable to make better decisions because, you're listening to this while on your phone, driving at the same time. We'll be right back.